identical bans, except the Akali is left up, and it's actually the Rise taken away against Karis here. They are scared of the Rise. Gordo, your graphic has inspired. Yes. It will be the buy first pick, though.
They didn't see the graphic because the Akali's still better. The Akali's...
yeah, that's a good point. You still want to take away the Akali, but they're going to try and shut it down with more point-and-click lockdown. Oh, yeah, Cube's blinding it. That's what you're calling out here. I think that's the call out, but
they might pass it up. There's an Aurora lock-in. We did see this could be a flex. We saw Cloud9 flex it to top lane earlier today, so it's still possible in Tier 1 competitive play. But I think that's most likely going for Karis in the mid lane, so probably no Akali showing here for game number 2. Monki, though, getting access to the Monki, and I think he would be very well advised to block this one in, especially with Aurora for what is already going to be a nice little big Venn diagram of an AoE combo.
Yeah, this really fits what WE like doing. When I think about WE's identity, especially this year, but even at times last year, you're talking about long flanks. You're talking about getting Karis into a position where he can find creative angles onto the backline in team fights. Aurora obviously offers that in spades, but it's going to be answered with a lot of proactivity on the other side as well. Vi Ahri, one of the more common jungle mid duos that we've seen throughout the last couple of years of professional play, and NIP are going to be very comfortable being able to bust it out here. They want that mid-game pressure. And WE gonna answer saying, you know, Cube, you were weak side king for a long time on multiple stops on multiple teams. You're gonna get back to that role here with the Scion.
Yeah, facing off against the Renekton, I think it's a good choice. It's a matchup we've seen time and time again, not just this year, but in previous years as well. But it's one that Cube should be well versed in, and it's one where, you know, if he does end up falling behind earlier on, it's not going to end up hurting him too much. Still going to be able to have that value coming into the mid and late game on the Scion, regardless of how that laning phase goes. And this Vi Ahri, like you called out, I think this has been really successful for NIP. The other times they've been able to pick it, they played it up against the EG to very great success. That was where Care won his player of the game that he's had so far for this year, his sole player of the game. And his performance on that Ahri was very, very solid. As WE get themselves back on the pick list, they're just going to snap up a marksman for about. Varus is banned on away, but still can just move on down the tier list and get themselves that Corki.
Corki, definitely the best option available for what they're building here. They want to make sure they have an AD carry that can play relatively safe against this Ahri Vi duo. You don't want that lockdown coming in and completely destroying you, especially because Renekton has that point-and-click stun. Aurora is already in a bit of danger for the aggression that she might want to put out. Renekton has always been relatively good in that matchup because of it. So having that Corki is just going to give you a little bit less to worry about in the mid-game if you do want to play around that Aurora power spike. But NIP, you know, we saw this previously from About in the other game, but indexing really heavily into that 2v2, making sure that you can get, you know, online as early as possible, get the push onto the bottom side is really important in the current meta. And Misfortune is almost better than any champion in the game at doing that. Zhuo's going to get onto a playmaker here in the rel, and you've got a comp in general that has so many different ways to find picks onto the map that you're definitely looking at a very mid-game dangerous comp for NIP.
Yeah, now Yaoyao looking back towards the Braum, old reliable here, can start to block away some of the potential damage coming in from both the Ahri and the Misfortune, and can really punish any engage attempts from the Rel and the Vi. If they do push up too far, I think this is a solid selection for him to close out the draft of game number 2. And, you know, finally we do get some engage from the WE side here with the Wukong Scion, so they definitely do not need it from Yaoyao this time around. Should give them some really strong kind of mid-game skirmishy power here, as long as they are able to avoid that initial big pick combo coming through from Guwon and Care.
Yeah, I like both of these drafts a lot more than game number 1. It feels a lot more even here. It's clear that NIP want to be playmakers on the map, and that's really the key here. What really dragged them down at the end of the last game was the lack of synergy and communication and execution, really, between Guwon and Care. Well, now you've got Vi and Ahri, two champions that really need to synergize in the mid-game to generate the leads that they need. If you're going up against a Wukong, Aurora, Corki in the later part of the game and you don't have that massive gold lead, things are going to get a lot more difficult. The onus in this game is absolutely going to be on Ninjas in Pyjamas to be able to bounce back and tie the series up.
Definitely is here. We've seen them get ahead every time they face off against WE. We have a 4 games worth of sample size now. see if they can do it for a 5th game in a row, and if they will be able to carry that one through to the win here. Snowballing some gold on towards the Ahri of Care. Definitely a recipe for success here. We've seen them do it already this season. They can get Assum into a good position. Definitely lots of tools to be able to set him up for success as well. Want to see the NIP carries earn their stars in this game number 2 to try to take them to a game number 3.
Still hearing the support for both of these teams in the crowd. Neither fan base willing to give up just yet after game number 1. A little bit of trading down on the bot side, but again, WE are going to be looking to try and counter a lot of this early aggression as much as they can. You do have a comp that I think benefits a little from some time, but the bot lane is certainly where you are looking to make sure you do not lose that pressure. You draft the Braum to make sure to counteract that early game combo from MF as much as possible. Zhuo just barely landing some damage. Summoner's getting blown.
You know, we saw both heals come out at the beginning of that engage, and About also using the barrier there after Yaoyao gets knocked by the crash down a little bit. Guwon going for an early invade here, going to try to win out a smite fight here up against Monki, and will be able to do it. Snags the Gromp for himself before returning over to his own camps. Just says thank you very much for the bonus.
Definitely a little disgusting there from Guwon. You know, Monki has been somebody who's wanted to play a lot more aggressive, but definitely not going to enjoy being down a camp in the early game here as we see more pressure coming down. Misfortune is just so oppressive in the current meta at being able to play that 2v2, even with the power of Braum. That shove is going in. We're going to get a replay of just him walking up. He's not seen. He's just going to queue over the wall, and everything's all hunky-dory for Guwon as he's able to steal away that Gromp, get himself a small tempo lead here, but the question is, what does he do with that tempo lead? Because as much as we really want to hype up how Guwon played and how important he was against WE in the last series, you know, this Vi really, really needs to showcase that it can be more consistent than what we saw out of the Jarvan and Guwon.
A little bit of special technology there out of Guwon, and says, hey, if we're both going to be racing to level 6, I'd like to be 2 camps up. And that's where he's going to find himself right now. It's a solid little advantage for the NIP jungler. He just has no choice but to continue on with his clear, and we'll find out in a couple of moments whether or not that differential will put Guwon into a position to make a big play. Recall's starting to come through from the bot lane. Assum successfully crashes a wave, gets back, picks up a cull. Says this is how I'm going to look to build up an advantage up against About, who also was able to get back and pick on up the tier.
We'll say here for NIP to sign and to bring in into a big vote of confidence, I think, from this team, and so far so good. He's paid it out pretty heavy.
And we've made it. Pause is over. We've gotten out on the other side. Thank you for sticking with us, everybody, as we are back in to game number 2 between WE and NIP. And Monki just going to pass his way through mid lane here to make sure he is able to get himself the double scuttle and close on out this CS gap that Guwon created by stealing away the Gromp.
Yep, definitely a nice adaptation for Monki with the tempo he gains. You know, Guwon obviously a little bit slower getting back to his own jungle. For now, though, Monki is going to have some tempo on the top side. Not really a lot you can do against a Renekton in particular, but he's going to continue to farm, try to get to level 6 as fast as possible on this Wukong. If he can actually match that level 6 timing, a lot of what we talked about in terms of the playmaking from the Vi, calculations change quite a bit.
Yeah, I think, you know, Guwon probably a little bummed that he wasn't able to have the winning lanes to be able to secure at least one of those scuttlers without too much trouble, but Monki quick on the move, able to get himself over and find both, and that means that his deficit has been largely erased from what happened at the beginning of the game. Of course, neither of these folks too close to level 6 yet. Will be another round of camps. Guwon looking for a maybe little path onto Karis here, or just at the very least some vision, or maybe even the chickens, as was a recall from Monki to be able to pick up the Tiamat on the Wukong. Guwon will be able to successfully steal away the bird for his troubles.
Yeah, he really wants to try to punish Karis in the mid lane here.
Up a little bit far, and Karis was able to find the charm, and that might be what calls it for Karis. Nice flash away from the crash down, and the weirding will give him that last little bit of space he needs to be able to escape.
Yeah, they're not able to layer the CC correctly, and it is going to be a nice escape from Karis. That's a lot of resources invested into trying to make that mid lane play happen. Unfortunately, it's just not going to go down. Guwon's still going to be a little bit ahead because of the stealing of those chickens, as you called out, but that's one of the big things we were trying to monitor. Where was Guwon going to put that pressure in the early game? At the very least for now, play number 1, not going to get much outside of the flash from the Aurora.
Absolutely. Karis holds on to the lane, doesn't even take a recall here, is able to even finish off his clear out. Kare going to be a little bit ahead in tempo as a result. The CS lead is in favor of Karis' cube. Pops the unstoppable onslaught there to keep the trade going up against Hoya, who will have to pop Dominus in response.
Yeah, Guwon gonna use this pressure to start up on the Dragon. This makes the most sense. You've got that Misfortune pushing on the bottom side of the map, and you do have a bit of tempo advantage. You're not quite level 6, but Monki's gonna have to spend some time re-clearing on that top side. Pings are going down. So this is a nice early pickup here. It's just a Cloud Dragon, but NIP were definitely a little behind in terms of the objectives until the late game. Last game, not able to secure that first one. They're gonna change that here in game 2.
Yep, snagging themselves Dragon number 1. About a minute and a half to go until the grubs are going to spawn. Monki, once again, going to look to equalize the CS discrepancy that Guwon created by stealing away his chickens, by stealing some chickens for himself. While that Dragon falls, did get the global notification. But you got to respect that if you're about in Yaoyao. You don't know where Guwon is. He is coming on in here with that level 6 available. I do think they saw the pet there walking away, so they do ping on.
Yeah, they just a little bit see the pet in their vision, and so they're able to spot out that that play is happening. Looks like the engage is going to be fine from Zhuo, but they decide not to pull the trigger. More than fine. You want to make sure you get the most of that Vi ultimate, but that level 6 advantage that we were talking about, not quite utilized. Monki is on the map. He's level 6. If a play is made, he can match.
Another charm lands into Karis here, but it's not going to be one that is pursued by Guwon. He was on the other side of the lane, which does give him that little bit of additional safety buffer. Yeah, like you said, Monki now with access to the Cyclone as well could be such a powerful early ganking tool. Guwon did not use the cease and desist, so he's going to have his available as well. So both junglers find themselves clearing top to bottom. Might be a little bit more action in the bottom lane before you know it, but these grubs are spawning in about 15 seconds, and Hoya has kept Cube shoved in throughout the majority of the laning phase. He's up by a couple of waves at this point, taking a recall, but going to choose to interrupt it, actually, so maybe these grubs are on the menu.
Yeah, the pings are coming down onto the bottom side for Monki. They really want to try and look for this play onto Assum, but I think WE really needs these grubs. This is a big, big dive. If they can pull this off, things are going to be better. If this doesn't work, it could be catastrophic.
You heard the farm alarm there, going to pop over the bullet. Time is awesome to try to clear out the wave, but the dive comes through regardless. Well juggled on the turret aggro, and first blood goes to About.
Definitely nice to get that first blood onto Corki. We see some really proactive plays coming in from WE, something we were asking for, but they do give up the grubs for this, and I think grubs are really important for this WE comp. For now, though, NIP, they're not done looking for some plays here.
Yeah, they're rushing over here to Monki, but a TP in from Yaoyao means he's ready to be able to keep on brawling. Karis coming on over the wall, has access to Between Worlds, will choose not to blow it onto Karis. Monki is able to finish off the blue buff. 4 members of WE still present, although a recall from About, maybe going to leave them a little bit outnumbered, trying to get a safe pathway out of here. Monki getting hit by Assum. There's a flash forward from Kare, block onto the charm, doing his best to kite for his jungler is Yaoyao, and he will keep him safe. Kare's engage is thwarted by the Unbreakable.
That is a huge cooldown from Kare to burn there. The flash comes through, but the kill does not follow. Very well played from Yaoyao on the Braum to be able to salvage that play and keep everyone alive. Overall, not too bad for either side. NIP are going to feel pretty comfortable with the objective trade that ends up going down. And WE are going to feel pretty comfy that they got that first blood. Once again, we're still sitting in a situation where Vi Ultimate has yet to be used, but as we see the way that this ends up going down, the escape pathway here for WE, it looks disastrous at the start. Once Kare's flash comes in, it looks like it's going to be over for Monki, but Yaoyao with the flash himself, the perfect positioning. That's pure support gameplay coming in, and the protection coming through from the Braum.
Well done by Yaoyao. This About takes a massive trade into Assum there. That's Sheen plus Phage damage for you. And Yaoyao going to be coming in for the backup here before too long. So starting to turn their fates around in this bottom lane 2v2. Thanks to the gold about was able to get on that first blood. Good start for WE here, keeping the gold at parity. Once again, this team's averaging like a 1,500 deficit at 15 minutes. So being dead even, that's like being 1,500 gold up if you're WE.
You might even have to add to that number because you're talking about going into a comp that has Vi, Ahri, Renekton, Misfortune. This is a comp that really wants to try and scale for WE and get to that later part of the game. And so far, so good with this Corki and Aurora. Aurora not quite up in gold, but a 500 gold lead for About down on the bottom side. He's getting closer to that first item power spike. And with the junglers now getting their first item power spikes as well, you just got to make sure you don't fumble the bag, per se, at this point with some of the engages that can come out from NIP.
Definitely going to be the focus. Second dragon spawning here in just a few seconds, so looking to see some focus around mid and bot. Over the wall comes Guwon. Monki waiting for him, going to pull the trigger right away. Guwon's got a flashback away. Now Zhuo's in too deep, trying to kite his way out, but stunned by the concussive blows and finished off by Karis. Sees an assist comes through onto Monki. They're going to try to make this a 1-for-1 trade. Karis doing his best to rain through the damage, gets weirding across two, but Karis able to find the execution, gets a reset on towards his spirit rush as he continues to step forward, trying to finish off Yaoyao. Good flash from Karis, gets out of the range of that charm and guarantees it's a 1-for-1.
It looks like a fantastic fight for WE at the start, but you cannot underestimate the power of Vi Ahri. It's why it's been so prevalent in pro play over the past couple of years. They can really turn some fights around, and the damage coming through, the burst coming down from both the Ahri and the Vi in that exchange really helps equalize things out. For now, WE still have control over the bottom side. They are going to send About to try and, at least posture around this dragon, but it's going to be everybody sending their resources down for this second Drake.
Yep. Coming back in off of the respawn, Monki wasting no time, neither is Guwon, and Guwon gets himself right back in the same situation. He's got to dive backwards to make sure that Monki is not going to be proccing those concussive blows. Zhuo coming on up, Care looking at it as well. Charm comes on out, it's blocked away. Magnet Storm comes through though. Monki chunked out very low immediately. Bullet Time comes through, melts through that clone, as well as most of Yaoyao's health bar, and I think that's going to be enough for NIP to be able to secure this dragon for themselves.
Yeah, it's a teamfight pseudo win, I should say, before the teleport coming in from the top side here. Cube is here.
Okay, Cube wants this. Stepping on forward. Dragon is still alive. Charm connects on a Yaoyao as he's just one shot. Bout flashes the wall and finishes off Guwon, though. Now Zhuo starting to fall low. Cube tanky enough to stay in this fight for a while, but now the other top laner's in there, and About got hit by a charm from Care. Hoya finishes off Monki. NIP coming out the better in this brawl.
Yeah, it's very chaotic. Decently sloppy from both sides, but at the end of the day, Hoya makes the big difference on this Renekton. We were talking about just how important it is for him to be able to find and lock down priority targets, and he did so in that exchange. But at the start here, it looks fantastic. The moment Cube comes in for WE, it feels like they're going to completely turn this fight. About flashes over the wall, wants to play aggressive. This Corki has enough damage to really tear through this fight, but this Renekton is not an easy crocodile to slay. The slice and dice coming through, even with the knockup. About gets hit by the charm, and there's just no way for him to be able to survive. One more slice and dice to clean up Monki is just enough for the fight to get turned, and thankfully for NIP, they're going to be able to survive by the skin of their teeth.
So seeing how quickly Monki got melted there leads us to a good opportunity to discuss this. What's your opinion on Profane Hydra Wukong? As I think this is some new tech we are seeing from Monki in this game number 2.
Well, who am I to really judge when Monki picks the monkey? You know what I mean? He's got to have some sort of insider advantage on the idea, but yeah, you're definitely seeing some of the flaws, or the cons, we'll just say, maybe in terms of the build path for now. He is going to be pretty difficult to deal with in the late game if he continues to build more aggressive like this, but you land that combo onto the right one, not the clone, but the actual correct Wukong, and things could get pretty dangerous pretty fast around these neutral objectives. I think a lot of what they are building for is making sure they can burst down with Karis in the mid lane and making sure that Aurora is as dangerous as possible.
Yeah, so, I mean, just about every competitive Wukong in the world goes Trinity Force. Well, Monki trying to innovate some new tech here. Certainly feels like it would give him, of course, the AoE clearing ability and the AoE damaging ability, but a little bit of lethality, a little bit of extra burst onto the squishies. really going to need to make sure that that counts for something here, as you can see the trade-off and how quickly Monki falls down in these fights. Hoya going to be the next target here. He's in a 1 versus 3. I don't think he's getting himself out of here without too much trouble, but look at the damage he's dealing back to Monki. Finally, Monki able to get him down there.
Yeah, Hoya wants the 1v3. He's opting in. He's popping that ult and saying, bring it. He buys enough time for his team to have full control over the top side. This is a trade they were very comfortable making. And Rift Herald going over to the side of NIP is pretty important. We talked about this multiple times, but being able to control the side lanes, I think, is super important to be able to play around that by Ahri. You want to make sure that you're in a spot where you can control who and what the enemy sees at any given time with your vision. And to do that, you need to make sure that that side lane pressure is coming through. The Rift Herald just going to add to that. Karis going to take a little bit of damage on the top side.
Chunked out, but not going to fall. Going to be able to find some time to back on away. Both mid laners find themselves 2-0. They've been recipients of quite a bit of income from these fights. Guwon arriving towards Karis here. He's just up too far. Is he going to be able to navigate his way out of this? He should still be able to cast Between Worlds. Going to do his best to buffer it and get himself out of the cease and desist. Nicely done there from Karis. As he will escape what was a 4-man send up towards topside with the addition of Assum. Not going to be able to make a response of too big impact, but about will get another turret lead.
Yo, we're not done! Flash for flash on the top side. Such an aggressive play there from both sides, but it's Rift Herald getting dropped. They want to keep this dive going.
Karis, can you... Oh! Just turns into a little ball of energy before the charm can connect. If that was half a second earlier, he is screwed, but does manage to get himself out as the turret falls.
Karis is breaking some ankles out here with his movement on this Aurora. He looks so comfortable on this champion. We talked about it. He's not always looked so good off of the Akali. At least here in this game, things are looking pretty solid. Karis not doing too bad for himself either. Both of these mid laners are in pretty fantastic spots going into the late game. Both of them have a ton of agency on the map with their champions' kits and the way that they play around their junglers and their supports. We wanted to talk about which one of these two in the mid lane is going to be able to come out on top, pressure out the other. Well, we're going to get a really good idea here in this one.
Q loses his soul furnace there.
Guwon?
There's going to be an engage coming through onto Guwon. He's going to have to flash away as Monki pops the early Cyclone. Meanwhile, though, another turret falls on down, and NIP will get a little bit of extra golden to care for it.
Yeah, a bit of an underratedly good part of this NIP's comp is their ability to take these towers in the early and in the mid game. Obviously, with all the pressure and the pick potential they have, you know that they can take these skirmishes, but they have a lot of ways to pressure out lanes and to push forward, even if they're not in ideal setups, and I think that makes for some really nice rotations from this team. WE's going to have to answer on the top side, but they're pretty far away. It's going to take them quite some time. You can see the vision control on the bot side really gets set up for this, but NIP want to answer.
Yeah, stepping forward, and again, the damage he does to the Monki on this squishy build is just crazy. Monki going for the Trinity Force after the Profane Hydra here, by the way. There's an engage from Zhuo, comes through the Magnet Storm, gets it onto Monki, cease and desist as well, and Guwon will take down his jungle counterpart.
Yeah, he is not the king of the jungle here today. Guwon looking very, very good in the early game. Still down in gold individually because of some of the assists on the side of Monki, some of the tower plates, but that Triforce will be coming in as the second item. Will be a little bit easier to perhaps make these aggressive plays now if you are the Wukong. The question is, where do you want to put that pressure now on the map as we start to see some of these objectives coming back up? 30 seconds on the third dragon. This will be sole point for Ninjas in Pyjamas. If they can really start stacking these, it gets even scarier for WE. One of their big conditions is being able to outscale, and Chemdragon can really neutralize a lot of that big item difference.
And Karis is still topside, no access to teleport as this dragon is about to be spawning here. I wonder what WE's plan is for this. They do have good friend Sion down there to be able to try to give them a little bit of support, and they are going to start sending Karis down. About also taking advantage of these recall timers to take out the mid lane outer turrets. So WE with control here, and yeah, the universal reset from NIP is maybe a little too late. They're now scrambling to try to get back into this dragon in time, but it's melted down pretty fast. Yaoyao fending off Zhuo. Hoya comes in on the side, now looking for the team fight. Monki going to pop the Cyclone right away. Gets himself away from Hoya, who is now being escorted away, but still does have this pinch to try to make the fight happen. WE stay grouped up together, stay close, stay threatening, and they will get away successfully, having secured the dragon. But Karis going to not be able to find too much. Yaoyao is thrown into the pit. Now he's stuck waiting for a pathway out. Monki gonna give it to him. And NIP, they just can't find a spot to pull the trigger.
Yeah, they need to pull the trigger here because they're losing so much.
Well, they end up with it on the Cube. He does come through with the Soul Furnace, but 4 members is just a little too much damage for a 20-minute in Scion. Cube will eventually fall on down. That's all they're really going to get for it. About doing his best to clear out this wave, finds good damage onto Assum, and will keep this mid lane turret standing for the time being as the rest of WE
they want to
back him up. Glacial Fissure connects on a Karis. He loses half his HP, but Karis doesn't want to commit between worlds.
A very chaotic fight as we continue to see the push down onto this mid lane tier 1. It's a very ill-advised recall coming in from Ninjas in Pyjamas, just much too late. They give up Soul Point and they delay their own win condition quite a bit, but they generate a solid lead because of it. Assum gets some time in the mid lane to be able to not only get some CS under him to catch back up to a bout, but also to pressure down that turret, and of course, you do end up finding at least something with Cube on the back end of that fight. Still, things could have been a lot better if that macro rotation was early for NIP rather than being a little bit late, and we've seen that decently consistently from this team throughout the split.
So Monkey's got that Trinity Force done now, so if I were to wager a guess, I'm going to think this Monkey does a lot of damage to these squishies if he is able to find his way onto them. So Karis and Assum going to be playing around slightly different thresholds with this Wukong than they may be used to with the traditional Triforce into Sundered Sky builds. See how big of a difference it really does make once these team fights start to break out. Looked like we might have gotten one at that dragon, but WE able to stay together, able to hose Hoya's engage attempts. Hoya doesn't find a path that he likes, so nothing really ends up breaking out other than that eventual pick on a Cube. Monkey gonna find Karis here. Gets his charm blocked by the clone, but Monkey will not commit the Cyclone.
Yeah, I think that could have been really, really dangerous for the Ahri, but alas, Karis able to get out without even having to pop the ultimate. Certainly a nice turn there, and definitely going to feel pretty lucky, but WE going to continue to pressure out. Baron is spawned on the map. We are sitting at around 22 minutes into the game. Yaoyao's too far forward, though.
Does manage to flash away. Magnet Storm gets used. Glacial Fissure comes through onto 2. Sees an assist into the back line. It's onto a Bout, but a Bout just flashes back and is perfectly safe. Hoya shows up, but he's in a 1 versus 5. Stunned up by the concussive blows immediately and taken down by Monkey. WE get 2 for 0.
A hugely ill-advised fight from NIP to take in the way that they did. Karis was already half health heading into it, and WE had full setup. Not only are they going to have priority around the Baron here, which they will, although we're seeing some NIP pressure.
Flashes away from the charm of Karis, and that's going to hose the engage attempt from NIP. Cube just kind of ults in place to be menacing, and it does its job. NIP forced to back away. Baron to WE.
Baron to WE, and it's off Yaoyao getting picked. It's a great flash from Yaoyao. It's a full engage coming out from Zhuo, but the end of that Braum ultimate catching Assum actually really matters to be able to stall some of the damage coming in. It's just an overextension from Guwon, who unfortunately gets followed back into the team with the ultimate. And at this point, Hoya is just diving into 5 members by himself. It's a really, really bad fight from NIP, and the gold lead that they had, been able to generate, it's gone, and now a lot of that gold is in really, really prime places for WE to fight over this dragon in less than a minute.
Yeah, just an over-aggression there from NIP, you said it. Feeling like they might have been able to get that snap onto a Bout, but he had all his mobility tools. He gets about half a Valkyrie off, and then he gets the flash back away. Guwon, I think, flashed back as well there, trying to take a back path out of the fight, but it gets blocked by Monkey. And there goes the fight, and there goes the lead. WE now feeling very strong. Like you said, the gold's right where they want it. Karis and Bout going to be the wealthiest members here, and going to have themselves 2 items apiece, working on their 3rd, and ready to fight up against NIP once again if the opportunity presents itself. They're the first ones to the Dragon yet again. Looking like NIP going to have trouble getting onto their Soul Point.
Yeah, they really need to be able to fight this out. Karis is the target.
Karis too far up. Stealth doesn't get him out. Hoya TP's in. Now Hoya might be up too far. Can they melt him down in time? No, they cannot, but they get him low enough that he can't participate in the fight. Care with still 2 casts of Spirit Rush, but they expire. And now up in the front line, Cube willing to keep on going. If they can keep about safe, they can still do a fight like this. Rocket starting to connect, chucking out Zhuo. Hoya flashes forward, gets onto Monki, but Monki spinning across the wall, melts down in a second, can't get the second cast off of the Cyclone, but Cube and about dishing out maybe enough damage to turn it back, but absolutely not. Hoya spinning through him with the Call the Meeks will call down WE. NIP find themselves an ace.
It's the top side of ninjas in pajamas that come up clutch, and unfortunately it's Karis getting caught once again at the start of a fight that really ends up costing things for WE. The pendulum just keeps swinging for these two teams. Hoya finding that engage onto Monki without the ultimate is huge at the end of the fight, but this all starts with an overextension from the Aurora by herself in the mid lane. Q comes over, the ult comes down, the combo comes through, and now it's a 4v5. Hoya doing a poor job to not get chunked out at the beginning. The Dominus is not going to be particularly effective, but as he shows later on in this exchange, he does not particularly need it. This is the problem with building so much damage onto this Wukong. The flash stun comes down from Renekton, the damage comes through, and Monki, who finds this amazing angle to get the Cyclone off, just can't live long enough to reap the benefits of it, and at this point, you just don't have the damage. The kiting from Assum. Cube's not able to do too much here. He goes down, but the problems have been created. The damage has been done, and WE just cannot salvage the fight from here. Hoya and Guwon continuing to look very, very good in these late exchanges, and it just feels like we're throwing back and forth forever.
Oh, about found by Hoya, nowhere to go. Hoya gets a solo kill as he catches out the Corki in transition, and Care does the same to Monki. WE picked apart at the seams as NIP get themselves a 5 versus 3 on the map.
Where did the late game WE go? This was a team that was constantly being able to come back from gold deficits in the early game. Now here they are finally generating a lead for themselves, and NIP are the ones clawing their way back into this game with the Vi Ahri duo. They want to try and get this tower, but
Man, knock Cube rushing forward, and Karis says, I can win this fight on my own. He's going to be able to take down Assum. Next up on the menu is Zhuo. No way to get back over the wall. Soon to be going down for a double, and in a 3 versus 5, WE come out 2 for 0.
I have no words, Gordo. It just is back and forth and back and forth. A 3v5 where WE are able to defend the gold lead only at 1.5k. I need to see how this starts. Looks like this should be a free pressure, but they just don't see Cube on the other end of this. It's a great engage that he's able to land. The damage comes down. The Q from the Braum hits Assum, and that slows him enough for the exhaust to come down and really shut off any misfortune power in this fight. Zhuo is a casualty at the end as well, but it's just an overextension again from NIP. Both of these teams playing so greedy right now.
Yeah, I mean, it was a 4 versus 3. Hoya was in the bottom lane. But the damage from between worlds is just massive, and the consistent ability of concussive blows to hold people still and create opportunities for Karis. It's enough there, and this guy is now huge on the Aurora. He's done so much in this game already. If he is able to not get suddenly picked and lose them out the dragon fight, he can be a big difference maker in these team fights.
I mean, if he finds one priority target, the game could be over from this point. And Karis, as we know, very active and very threatening in these flank angles. I do want to give a big shout out to Yaoyao, who I think has had a great game on the Braum so far. If he can continue to find ways to protect his main carries, it's going to be difficult for NIP to find those engage angles. Basically, all of their major engage angles are
Hoya
fully committal, and they're going to look for one here with the TP for Hoya.
I mean, Yaoyao and Cube are in between Hoya and anybody important.
Oh, Guwon's just dead.
Deep behind enemy lines. In the Baron pit, forced to flash, gets away at 1 HP, but Cube says, hey, I'll take those odds. They managed to get the slow on towards Assum, and About will claim his life. Hoya's TP turns out to be for a split push, but the Baron is the target for WE.
And the Baron will be their prize unless something happens here. Guwon is back. He's not quite full health. There could be steal potential, but this is going to be very, very tough for NIP.
Yeah, I mean, mid-inhibitor turret is getting slammed on a bit here, but it does mean Guwon is going to have to try to go for a miracle steal. Karis finds him, and Guwon is forced to retreat. Monki's not in the pit. Monki is chasing into the jungle camps. He's going to start getting hit by Guwon. He's just going to force them out alongside Karis, and they're going to say, all right, guys, you take the Baron without me.
These first two games, Gordo, have been absolutely unbelievable. As we see these trades coming down, feels like both of these teams have full and zero control both at the same time. Incredible stuff from these two, really showcasing why Group Perseverance has been so fun to watch across this split so far. But it's still NIP with the gold lead despite everything. And almost all of that is the 2,000 gold lead on Hoya on the top side. This level 18 Renekton is still a major problem. We have to make sure they're not overly aggressive.
I don't know what you're talking about here, Kman. They claim the Baron and they go down 1.5k, exactly as you would expect. Cube stepping up here, going to try to make sure that this soul doesn't end up going on through. Monki probably going to have to end up 50-50ing this unless he can take out Guwon. Guwon looking for the engage, dives in the backline. About's already been able to take down Care. It is going to be a one-for-one trade, marksman for marksman. Karis goes into the stasis, trying to be able to finish off Assum. He will be dropped on the opposite side, but Monki is getting focused down, trades one more down, but Hoya and Guwon will stay standing, and it's only Cube left alive. This is going to be soul for Ninjas in Pyjamas. Jungler and top lane are more than enough to work their way through the Baron as they claim a second ace.
It's a huge fight for NIP. They had to win this in order to maintain their control over this game, and they do just that. You called it out. It's soul for Ninjas in Pyjamas, but let's not forget, this will be their second soul of the series. We'll see how this ends up starting. We called it out. Hoya on the flank here with this Renekton. All of the attention is in the pit. But who does this Renekton find? But priority targets off of a great engage from Guwon. About is eliminated, even with no mid laner for NIP. They have more than enough damage to clean this up. It's the Bruiser duo on the top side for NIP that have been so clutch in this game so far, and they're able to clean up this entire fight.
I'm going to be honest here. I can't help but imagine what a Sundered Sky would be doing for old Wukong here in this game. The ability to regen some actual health would be absolutely huge, but it is absent from the build of Monki, and he once again just finds, you know, random damage from around the team fight, chunking him lower and lower and lower until he's just walking around at 200 HP with no chance to try to turn the fight back.
It definitely is, you know, starting to come into play. I think, you know, we were talking about the survivability. Guwon has found significant engages throughout this game, and Monki Cyclones have just not been quite as impactful up until this point, mostly due to that health bar. But as much as we talk about him not finding one yet, if he can just find the one, everything can solve itself out. We've seen both of these teams down in gold find ways to claw their way back in, and if there's anything I know about this WE team, it's that they're not going to give up in this one.
Hoya having an absolutely huge game here. He once again is able to find and execute a carry in that last fight, and that is what WE need to break the streak of. Yes, the engage from Guwon and Care, it's going to be largely inevitable in a lot of these circumstances. Hoya's engage less so. You need to be able to get somebody back away from it. You have mobility tools on Karis and About. About has his flash back again. He needs to make sure that he's not the one getting sectioned out here. He needs to be able to put up damage numbers in these fights.
Well, I think the important thing is, will Hoya have flash up for this next fight? It is so crucial that this Renekton has opportunities to get onto the backline. It becomes so much more difficult if you don't have that flash available. It looks like they are going to play slow enough, or they will be able to get that back in time. But this 3k gold lead, it's entirely on the Renekton. If Hoya is not able to find a priority target, or if you're able to burst down that Renekton quickly with the Aurora and the Corki damage, things can get very, very difficult for NIP, who I still do not believe have the easier to execute front-to-back 5v5.
Yeah. Looking for Monki to be able to find these big engages, these big cyclones, and give an opportunity to melt down some carries on that front. Karis has shown what his burst can do as well in some of these team fights, has access to the stasis to buy those crucial moments of additional time. NIP, as long as they stay grouped up, as long as they choose good angles to take these fights in, they very well could find themselves a game number 3 on the night. So far, just milling around, picking up waves, though, waiting for these objectives to respawn. Baron going to be here in a minute.
And that is the prize right now. Baron could decide this entire series as WE. Guwon kind of behind enemy lines here, as we could potentially see him try to find an engage angle onto someone like About.
Will he be able to find him in transit again? This time About's got Yaoyao and Monki right near him. Zhuo on the move over. They walk into Guwon. They will. The flash engage gets onto him with the cease and desist. About still staying alive for the time being, but he will drop. Monkey's Cyclone, not enough to save his marksman. Karis arrives, but it is too little and too late. Doesn't find the between worlds onto anybody, and that is gonna be game number 2. NIP will send us to game 3 off another pick onto the marksman.
Secret Agent Guwon ends up stepping up in a massive moment. He finds the engage. The team follows up beautifully. And NIP are bringing us to yet another game number 3. They're addicted to going the distance, and they will get another shot at a series win here tonight.
NIP are getting their reps in here. That's all there is to say about it, Kman. They are here for the full suite of games available to them each and every time. They're not going to lose out on potential practice. So they lose game number 1 and they take us to game number 3, as was written and as has occurred every time so far this season.
I mean, the script writers got to get a little more creative at this point. We're starting to sense the pattern a little too much when it comes to this NIP team. As it really turns out, no Jarvan, win. That's kind of how things are going right now. It felt like the engages were so much more specific in this game. The top side was so clean, and it really felt like a lot of the ease of execution from NIP came through. Stuff that we wanted to see in game number 1, didn't necessarily get a chance to see, I think really came through in game 2.
And the flank angles in the jungle just coming up big time there. Of course, Guwon at the very end going to be a major highlight, but Hoya too, able to make some big picks onto About in the earlier stages of the game and be able to set up for topside plays, able to come in on flanks at dragon fights and be able to have big influence there as well. Hoya puts up a crazy scoreline at the end of that one, and it's well-deserved. He had a great Renekton game there.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into player of the game conversations a little bit later, but Hoya's a big front runner for me. What a game from him on the top side with this Renekton. We called it out in draft that he has so many targets for his ability to play in the late game. This is one of the few comps that I think you really can just kind of pick anyone that isn't Sion or Braum, and you're going to find an important target, especially once the Wukong ends up being a little squishier than you maybe would have expected going into the game. He found multiple angles, even without Dominus, onto priority targets, and when you are able to create that much space for the rest of your team, it doesn't really matter if you have the damage coming in from Ahri. You have the lockdown and the consistency coming through from the Renekton.
You absolutely do. And that was what it was a difference maker in so many of these team fights. The fact that he's able to pump out so much damage. The fact that he's able to pretty much 1v1 the Wukong a lot of the time too. I mean, that damage that he was able to dish on out in the kind of early to mid stages up against Monki and the Profane Hydra Wukong build, it certainly was felt there. He's just not as tanky of a Wukong as we're used to seeing, and it didn't feel like his damage was that much more impactful either. I think I'm not a big fan of what Monki debuted for us here today, build-wise.
I can't agree more. I was skeptical at the time. I am even more skeptical now that I've seen it in practice. One of Wukong's biggest strengths is being able to survive and push forward, is not having the fear of being the one targeted in a lot of these exchanges because you have your own escape tools, but unfortunately not the case for Monki in that game, getting out damaged by the Vi. But as we see, Hoya top damage in the game on the Renekton, 33.8 thousand damage coming in. That's more than the Aurora, that's more than the Corki, that's more than his own Misfortune. Just a massive performance from this guy on the top side.
Yeah, absolutely huge for him, and he did exactly what you would hope for from your top lane Renekton, built up the advantage earlier on, and was able to bring that lead to the fight in the mid and late stages of the game. And see, once again, this is one of those team fights where NIP over-aggressed just a little bit here, even with Hoya coming in on the flank, but those are few and far between, and as long as they, had their limits in mind and were able to stay grouped up together, they very rarely were able to slip up from there on out.
And this is what this comp does best, as we see on the screen, is capitalize on mistakes. And we saw multiple mistakes from WE throughout this game in terms of positioning and just overall teamfight setups. It didn't really feel like they respected a lot of the backline engage that NIP had to offer. It's the entirety of their comp at the end, and yet you were constantly seeing situations where players like About and Karis were alone in pivotal setups around major objectives. Those are things that you just cannot get away with at this level, and they were punished really heavily for it. As we even see in some of these exchanges, they were able to turn some of it around because their team fighting is still really good. We saw that fire and that fight that WE often show us, but they just didn't have the execution in this one to really make it count.
Yeah, certainly. And, that was the cost that they ended up paying here. Frequently, WE not able to get the fight lines that they would have wanted, not able to play front to back, and that's because of all the different dive tools that were available to NIP, making good use of the Vi Ahri composition. Another good fight here from the side of WE, but it's one that was often few and far between, and ones that occurred deep enough that it wasn't a good opportunity for WE to be able to clap back and actually take significant, meaningful advantages from.
And this is really the fight where I think everything changes, where Hoya just completely destroys the backline. About is eviscerated by Guwon and Hoya, and you're able to move throughout the jungle a lot easier from this point onwards. Not only do you have Soul, because you're able to pick that up here, but you have so much gold onto the Vi coming out of this fight that those engages become a lot more threatening from this point in the game onwards. I believe this was a pretty big power spike item-wise coming in for Guwon as well after this. So it really just ends up completely changing the game in every possible way for NIP, and unfortunately for WE, that means that they got 2 Barons in this game and ended up still losing. Not a stat that I think you're going to see all that often.
Yeah, and, it's everything that they could possibly do to try to keep Corki alive in this team fight, and none of it's enough. And sometimes that's how League of Legends is played, though. You get one pick on towards a major carry in a later stage of the game, and it just decides everything. And that was the case here for game number 2. NIP once again take us to game number 3 up against WE. It's happened more than once now to kick on off our winter season, and they're able to win it out again. Like we said at the beginning of the show, it's all but going to guarantee them first seed out of the group.
Yeah, I mean, if they're able to walk out of this with yet another Game 3, the Game 3 merchant comments are going to be coming in fast. We'll just say that, but it's actually Guwon who's going to be picking up our player of the game. He finds that engage at the end. Secret Agent Guwon able to end it off with the Vi engage. I think Guwon had a great game. Like Hoya maybe would have been my selection, but certainly can't be too mad about the jungler here.
Yeah, I would agree, but it's definitely still a valid selection here for Guwon, and he is the one who played Secret Agent at the end of the game, stayed behind enemy lines for nights and days until he was finally able to get that angle on towards the carry, take About out of the fight, and end the game right then and there. So, hey, if you win the game off of one play that you made on your own, maybe that is enough to just guarantee you that MVP for game number 2.
Yeah, I mean, I can't be mad. He made plenty of plays throughout the game. Even the play that we called out for Hoya, where he completely destroyed About, it was Guwon's engage that ended up locking down the Corki in the first place. It was those two playing off of each other that really separated everything for NIP, and it's that combo that we've been waiting for Guwon to pair up with someone. We thought it was going to be Care. Turns out it was actually Hoya, and either way, it's effective.
Absolutely here. And now we get another NIP game number 3. Will it go the same direction as the others, or will WE find another miracle comeback? We'll find out after a coming up break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with draft number 3 as soon as it is available. We'll see you all soon.